Royalty in studio today, and yes, that's right, winning organization. We're dreaming it big. It's the CHGO Bears Podcast, and it starts right now. And on a optimistic Monday, here we come, the CHGO Bears Podcast. We got royalty coming in the studio at some point, sometime soon. But actually, Jake Flanagan, you're kind of royalty too. Let's. Anytime the general manager steps in and wants to sit in the big chair over there,
right,
it's royalty. But how are you doing, Gregory? Good to see you, buddy.
Good seeing you. Happy after 4th. We got 12 more days until the rookies report to Hallis Hall for training camp. So we're right around the corner. We made it through the 4th of July. The Cubs are no longer stressing me out. They won 5 of their last 6.
Greatest team ever.
Greatest team.
Going to win the World Series.
Great. All right, just slow down.
Nope.
Slow down.
Nope. I'm just full Kool-Aid this morning.
Got our guy Kevin, shirts off.
Oh.
So that means it's a beautiful day.
The store. Carman doesn't turn off his phone. Great way to start the show.
This is the time of year. It's like a wrestler that's down on the mat. You get that first little bit of life, feeling in the veins going, and they're coming back.
Right.
They're rising. Like, that's it for Bears right now.
Well,
like last year kicked us down hard, but now it's time to rise.
Yeah.
So it did kick us down hard, but nobody stays through the kicking and remains optimistic better than you. Like, really. Braggs, would you concede that even your optimism is definitely trumped by Jake's optimism? Fair enough?
Usually, yeah, but last season I think got me good.
When did you die last year?
Sometime in the middle of the 10-game losing streak, probably around 5 or 6.
So the Commanders happens. You're still.
I know when it was. It was when I thought the Bears were going to come back against the Vikings, when no one thought they would, and my wife and I believed, and we were in that stadium that they were going to come back, and then they didn't. And then I'm like, okay. This really is officially over.
I mean, we were in Arizona. We had a great trip down there. You were there, and they didn't even show up that day. But regardless of that, and we're talking about the Bears becoming a winning organization. I'll just put it out there. Hub Arkush is going to join us in studio too. I know a ton of Bears fans are Hub fans, so just reason to stick around. He'll be here in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it's going to be. But I'm curious, your biggest reason for why you think this year is going to be successful, because I know you're dreaming it big.
It's a combination of things. It's not one thing, and that's really the best answer, I think. The big thing, obviously, is Ben Johnson that everybody's been talking about, but it's the fact that the team addressed the offensive line. And Caleb Williams, in his entire football life, when protected, has weapons, and good coaching, is an elite quarterback. So that will happen now in the NFL when all those things exist. And so why would we not think the Bears can win 9 games, 10 games, 11 games? Why not? Why couldn't that happen with this situation?
Well, it's interesting because Derrick Rose once famously said, "Why not? Why can't I win the MVP?" And then he went out and did that. But when you're cautiously optimistic, as most Bears fans have become, if you weren't before the last 3 years, you have been now, because you enter every season at this time with this crazy optimism, and then the blind spots start to reveal themselves as you get into the season. So, I mean, that was actually one of the thoughts I was going to have, for like later in the week, like what are those blind spots? But you're right. It's like, if everything goes right, that's the problem though. In football, you can't expect everything to go right. So how many things need to go right in order for the Bears to be that why not team? And if you do the fan math and you say, okay, they only won 5 games last year, bad, but they could have won 9 games if this, and this had gone right, and they didn't have this coach and they didn't have this offensive line. And it does feel like they've fixed those things. Now it ultimately, I feel like, comes down to chemistry and continuity.
Yeah, and a lot of talent on that team. Let's.
But
I
they
mean,
had talent on last year's team. They had winnable talent on last year's team. The biggest difference is coaching, and then also the offensive line. But
they did have talent, but they didn't have talent up front, which is about where you really want to have talent. So there's a massive talent infusion there. There's also a massive, well, hopefully at least a significant talent infusion on the edge as far as getting to the quarterback. Go ahead.
I know you guys are going to be talking about breaking the cycle in the 40 years, and Hub's going to really dig into this with you guys. But if that's it, as Bears fans forever, we have those blind spots that you're mentioning. We have the deficiencies that the Bears team have that we say, it's not that bad. Like, they can get, if this happens, you know what? Usually it is bad. It's worse than we think it is. And even people that are overly optimistic like myself, I'm probably lying to myself a little bit sometimes, right? And I get that. But this year, I do think it's different. I don't think the deficiencies are as great as our mind that we've been conditioned to as Bears fans wants to make them. So that, to me, feels great. And I don't think you can flip it upside down and say 5-12 to 12-5. But there is no reason this Bears team cannot have double-digit wins. There's no reason.
Did you watch the incredible video that I did laying out how they get to 12?
I have not yet.
Okay, which is fine. It's fine. Yeah. Great Carman work. It's okay. A lot of content around her. I get it. But look, I thought, did you watch it?
I did. I was actually present for the show.
Yeah, right.
It was one of the few times I was listening.
Oh, that was good. That was good. By the way, you're very tan. I don't know what you did this weekend or how much time you spent in the pool, but you were like,
it's a bronze.
You are bronzed, right?
Thank you.
I mean, this guy's like rosy nose and like
his skin like my third layer of skin is it's like it's the snake.
You look good. It's summer's looking good on you, and I'm proud of you. But did you think that anything I said in the how they could get to 12 was unreasonable? Did you think that was too much Kool-Aid even for someone like yourself?
No, it's not. What you said, they're all reasonable. They're all pathways. If Caleb and Ben click, if Colston Loveland, has
is 70% of Sam Laporta. If Rome Odunze gets to 1,000 yards, who else did I said an easy one. If Tyreek Stevenson basically matures, doesn't talk to the crowd in Washington. They are playing the Commanders again this year, by the way. Let's not go back and do that again. And if they can get some form of pressure up front.
They're all doable. They're all realistic things that could happen. But the problem is to expect all of them to happen. Yeah. You don't need all of them to happen in order for the Bears to have a winning season. But expecting all of those things to happen and having this magical year, that's when, the Bears have this happen once every 10 years where all the stars align. Yep. And then all of a sudden the Bears have a club dub magic season, and then it eventually hits its ending. But I'll always go back to the 2015 and 2016 Cubs when they had 10 minor leaguers coming up. Chris Bryant, Javi Baez, Jorge Soler, and all these great players. Addison Russell. I can remember telling
Jake Arrieta.
Right. I can remember telling a friend, if half of these guys work out, they're going to be a good team. Because you couldn't expect all of them to work out. And then what happened? Yeah. They all worked out, and that equaled a World Series.
Well, that's what I was laying out. Like, if you're talking dream scenario, look. And I don't think they're like huge ifs. I'm not betting my life savings on it. But Caleb and Ben hitting that's not exactly some huge unlikelihood, right? I would, if you want to be a guarded conservative person, you'd say that that's 50-50. Like even if I was a conservative Carm, I'd say there's a 50-50 shot that those two are gonna hit. And so, okay, fine. Now, if that happens, that starts the chain of events. If Caleb hits, is Rome going to 1,000 yards? I don't think that's unreasonable at all. He didn't fully hit last year, 46% hit, whatever you want to call it, and Rome had 800 yards in his rookie year. So that's not unreasonable. And then is DJ gonna, if those two get together, is DJ gonna get back to where he was 1,300 yards with Justin 2 years ago? I don't think that's unreasonable either. And Colston, y'all picked him 10th. We haven't seen him, but I would like to think that you didn't completely mess up that pick.
So here's the thing about everything you guys just said. Typically, we would love that, and we were going right to the weapons, right? And we'd say, oh, well, that'd be great, and that could happen. And the thing about it is, they wouldn't be able to do that because we'd be overlooking that they didn't invest enough in the offensive line. And this time, it's different. They've got Tooney. They've got Dahlman. They've got Jackson to go with who they already have there. And that's something that's reminiscent of, 04 and 05 Bears, where they needed to get Tate. They needed to get Reuben Brown. They needed to get Garza to go with Olin. And then it took one more year where they got our big guy, Fred Miller. And that completed it. And the thing about it is that Bears team was way more talented defensively, but as a quarterback and weapons-wise, on offense, they were nowhere near this team. And from an offensive coaching standpoint, they were nowhere near this team either. So that's what gives me hope for the quick, here we go, rocket fuel on offense. And if the defense holds up their end of the bargain like we expected them to last year, and in a lot of ways they weren't able to, but it wasn't just their fault. They had some key injuries, and the offense put them in not so great situations, and everything was honestly a complete mess.
It was.
So
one of the greatest messes of all time, and we thank you for the content. That was tremendous content. Just don't do that again.
I think the Bears defense does what we hoped that they would do last year, this year. And if they do, with what has changed on the other side of the ball, there's no reason we cannot be optimistic and hopeful and honestly realistic to expect this Bears team to be a really good football team.
Yeah.
How many Bears jerseys do you own?
A lot.
How many Bears?
I only have two that fit. Two that fit now, but
what are the
like
two?
5 or 6 probably, yeah.
What are the two?
We've got Hester, we've got Urlacher, we've got McMahon, we've got Sweetness.
Put it this way, the worst jersey I own is a Jared Allen Bears jersey that I never wore. That I bought thinking, oh, wow, what a great signing this was. And then it, like, I don't even know if he ever played for the Bears. Like, he did, but it just felt like he never
year and
did.
a half.
That's the worst jersey.
The reason why I'm bringing it up is, like, of all the new guys, what jersey would you buy right now? What jersey would you buy that would not become the next Jared Allen? Like, would you be as bold if I told you could have a Dio Odangbo jersey at 23% off, or you have to pay full price for a Dahlman? Would you take the Odangbo, or would you go Dahlman?
Dahlman.
Yeah, I think he's one that's overlooked in this offseason because of the pedigree that's coming over here with Tooney and everything else that's going on with Ben Johnson. I think the Dahlman signing, the Dahlman arrival is massive for this Bears team. And I think we all know it and feel it, but we'll really know it and feel it when we get to game days and this season goes on. And Caleb, it's going to make such a difference to have that anchor just where it needs to be, because it has not been for a very, very long time.
Let me go down the rabbit hole one more step. Would you rather have a Kyle Monangai? I know what you're going to say, so would you rather have a Monangai or a Karan Amagaji?
Oh, that's easy.
Is it? It's all Monangai?
Yeah.
Monangai or Trapillo?
Trapillo.
I knew you were going to go Trapillo.
Give me Ruben Hippolyte. You know it.
Hippolyte or Monangai?
Hippolyte. Yeah. He's my guy.
Ruben Hippolyte's your guy?
Yeah.
Why is Ruben Hippolyte your guy?
You'll see.
Okay.
You will see.
Okay. Katie just laughed at you.
Well, there's 3 phases to football, right? We talked a lot about offense and defense in the last 5 or 10 minutes. How about special teams? How about having that depth on defense with that speed to come there when you need it?
There it is, chat, right there. Dudes, this is what Jake does. He's valuing all the positions. What special teams? Hippolyte.
Yeah, Monungai's great too. Why can't we have both?
We can, but we got to. But in this particular Carm hypothetical,
Okay.
we have to choose jerseys.
Some different ones here in the chat. Crikey, I'll just call him Crikey. He said, I got a Tommy Harris jersey right before his knee exploded, and I've been barred from purchasing another one by my family. Dirty Dog saying I got a Bernard Berrien jersey. I still break out occasionally. One of my favorite jerseys I have, because I have a lot of jerseys, and most of them, and this is just a little flex, but most of them are signed. The jerseys that I bought back when I'd go to training camp, it was my goal and my mission to always get them signed by that player. Julius Peppers gave me the nicest autograph I've ever received. Just like the penmanship of it. Like some people that just, it's just fine. They're going to do what they're going to do, however their signature is.
But do it a lot.
When Julius Peppers, first weekend here at Bourbonnais, or when it was at Bourbonnais, I asked him, he was going down the line, and and I had his jersey, and he said, well, stretch it. Like he didn't like rush through it. He was like, hey, stretch that out so I can write well. And then he gave me a really nice, like just a beautiful signature.
Hall of Fame signature.
Yeah, for sure. And my favorite one probably is my Marcus Robinson jersey that I had him sign at a Bears draft day party at Soldier Field like 10 years ago. I loved Marcus Robinson.
Yeah.
I used to tell people I thought he was going to be the next Randy Moss. I did.
Hey.
I was so wrong.
Good. 88, right?
He was very good, man, to start his career.
How loud did you yell that at the time? Did Mubs know that you thought that?
In 1998, well, I was, 12 years old, 13 years old, and I'm just coming off of Michael Jordan, who tricked me into believing that every player every year was just going to ascend and become better and better and then become the greatest. And then I learned, so some players hit a peak. And that's kind of like what we're talking about here today when we say all the expectations of a season. You look at certain players and your expectation is that they'll just keep getting better.
Yeah.
But sometimes players hit a wall or something doesn't go right and there's a regression. And that's where the blind spots as fans always hit, is we're not anticipating some of those things at times.
All right, let's take our first quick time out here. Royalty has arrived. We're going to bring him out here in a second. The great Hub Arkush is coming on with us in 2 minutes, but first...
Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. New customers now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5, win or lose. Sign up and use the code CHGO365. Deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. And obviously with baseball season right here, with the Bet365 early payout offer, you're a winner if your team goes 5 runs ahead with an instant payout on straight bets and parlay selections marked as winners. Download the app and use the code CHGO365 when you sign up. And then, of course, breaking news from Bet365. New customers now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up and use the code, once again, CHGO365. Deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets. If your bet wins or loses, bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, crisis counseling and referral services can be accessed by calling 1-800-GAMBLER in app only. And then I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Empire Today. Just like your team needs a home field advantage, your team needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get that. We've all been to those big box stores. They don't know what they're doing. It's the people at Empire Today that know what they're doing. They have been living and breathing flooring from day one, and that's the people you want to go with. You can pick the right flooring just working for you in the showroom, right to your home. Get precise measurements, all the amenities. Schedule a free home estimate today, because some things are better at home. CHGO listeners can receive a $350 discount when using the promo code CHGO. Yes, you heard that right. A $350 discount with code CHGO. Restrictions apply. Visit Empire Today for CHGO for full details.
All right. And without further ado, let's bring in a familiar face, Chicago royalty, Bears royalty, football royalty, Pro Football Weekly, WGN Radio, WSCR Radio, literally every station in town is you've been on, Hub Arkush, and welcome to CHGO. We appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, I'm trying to get comfortable with that word royalty, but other than that, I'm doing fine.
Well, you are though. Like I was texting this morning with Dave Ennett, who's the outstanding sports director at WGN Radio, who's been there, has done Northwestern for 30 plus years, and Dave's he's a phenomenal person. He's also phenomenal behind the mic. But at any rate, I was trying to put it together, like you in the WGN radio booth back in the day, which is before you were born, sir. Was it you and Butkus and Wayne? Do I have that right? Like, I'm trying to get clarity.
I started with Wayne and with Dick, and then eventually Gary Fensick came in, and he was followed, of course, by the current crew, and we had a number of partners over the years, but. Yeah, it was special in those days. I mean, I still look back on 85. I didn't wish I have to look that far back, but that's what we have to do these days,
Right.
you know. And then remember everything that happened since. And, you know, even with the lack of Super Bowls and the lack of championships, it's the Chicago Bears. You know, there's 2 or 3, maybe 4 franchises in the NFL that you think of first, and the Bears aren't one of them. And just been blessed, along with Dave and other guys, to get to work with them the last 45 years.
So
Are
you just-
you as
Yeah, go ahead.
do you feel the same betrayal that I feel with Wayne Larrivee going to the Packers? Because it's hard to hear him with the "here's your dagger" call, and it's like he is my child, and he's every emotional memory I have as a Bears fan and a Bulls fan growing up, and now he's on the other side of it. So I feel a big betrayal with Wayne.
Well, I think when you know the backstory, you'll feel better, because Bears fans will understand this. Wayne and I are still very close friends and have worked together for years. Wayne grew up on the East Coast, you know, not in New York. I can't remember exactly where, but somehow he grew up out there a Packers fan. And through his childhood and through his, you know, growing up and deciding to get in the business, always a Packers fan. And it was hard for him when he got the Bears job, but, you know, he got used to it fairly quick. And then we did it together, 17, 18 years. And then the Packers job opened up. And he obsessed that off season. I mean, we were talking every third day. Can I do this? Should I do this? I said, well, you got to do what you got to do. And he grew up a Packers fan. That's the only place he would have left the Bears for, was the Packers.
Wow.
And I think Bears fans who grew up Bears fans would understand that.
Sure.
And I know there are still times when he looks back on the decision and wishes maybe he hadn't. I shouldn't say that. I don't want to put words in Wayne's mouth. Very happy with the Packers. But it was just one of those deals where if I was working with another team and I got a chance to take the Bears job, I'd be gone in 5 minutes.
Of course.
And so he did the same thing. He just came from a different place. That's
Sure.
all.
Well, he's great, and that's the only reason I say that with love, because he's one of the best.
No doubt.
But that's what I mean when he says royalty. Like, for me, that's why I was so excited to have you come in, and I really appreciate you taking the time, because, like, for someone like me and a lot of fans that are tuned in right now, like, the reason we are Bears fans or Chicago sports fans has obviously everything to do with the team and the players that we grew up loving, but you guys as the storytellers. And in Chicago, I just feel like we were blessed with a lot of some of the greats that are like foundational pieces of what sports media, not just Chicago sports media, but what sports media was and is today.
Well, you guys probably already get this, but if not, you'll get it in the next 10, 20 years. What we do isn't work. This is fun.
Oh, 100%.
You know, this is what I wanted to do my whole life, and I've gotten to do it my whole life. And any chance to talk sports, any sports, but particularly football, and to talk Bears, give me a call. I'm in. You know, that's what I like.
Well, and so it was interesting because I was talking to you at training camp. I think it was either last summer or the summer before you had your health scare. And you were telling me that coming out of Michigan, I believe you started at SIU, right? And then you transferred to Michigan, which is an incredible accomplishment. I don't think any student in the history of Southern Illinois has ever transferred to Michigan. That's an amazing deal right there. And shout out SIU, it's a great school, all that. But that's a rare combo right there. And then you were going to work at a zoo or something and not go into football. Is that true?
Well, not a zoo exactly. I had to work my way through school, and the job I got there at the University of Michigan, 1 year at Southern Illinois because I wanted to play football. And
wow.
All the high school football players thought I was going to be a football player. Didn't take long at Southern Illinois to realize that I wasn't good enough to start there, so I didn't have a future in football.
Okay. And
so after the first year, I had always wanted to go to Michigan. But I had to work, and I worked at the University Medical School, and I ran the dog kennels, and I took care of the dogs that were brought in for research. But I had 40, 50 dogs any one day, and was working full-time, going to school full-time, and have always been a dog fanatic. And so, I thought that was going to be what I was going to do for a career. My dad had started Pro Football Weekly about 8-9 years earlier. A year after I transferred to Michigan, it was a couple of years after I transferred to Michigan, he passed away very young. The business was in bankruptcy. Always loved football, obviously, and it was Pro Football Weekly. So instead of taking care of dogs, I had to take over Pro Football Weekly for the family. I had an older brother who came to me shortly after my dad died and said, well, obviously you're going to run the business. Okay. And my younger brother never wanted to work at all,
Right.
So next thing I knew, it was Pro Football Weekly, and now it's 45 years later.
just stepped in and made a half-century long business out of it. That's a pretty good job right there. What if you could? I mean, it's a long time ago now, but if you could bottom line how you were able to get it to just along the path, like what were the keys to creating something that really had never been created before, and you turned it into a TV show, as a magazine. I mean, it's had a million different forms, and it's still going now.
Well, the business at the time was pretty much the only thing for football fans, in writing. But my dad had gotten it started. My dad was a media professional. He got out of World War II, went to work at the Sun-Times, and he knew what he was doing in building the business. The problem was getting people to pay for it, and that's why by the time he passed away, we were in bankruptcy. And we just had to stay with that. But we were kind of the only ones at the time. I look now to draft coverage. We invented independent draft analysis. You didn't even get any information until the day of the draft, until we invented the Pro Football Weekly Draft Guide. And we did things like that, and the game was growing. It was mainly thanks to Al Davis and some of the other top owners who got it to the next level. And it was just about the time, sadly, that my dad passed, that the league was really taking off, and people were looking for more information. Well, we were the only thing, so we were the place everybody started, and I was very fortunate to get it at that time. And all I had to do was keep writing stories about football. My dad did all the hard part about getting the business going.
Did you have any relationship with Hallis? Did you know him at all?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I did the last interview that George Hallis gave before he passed away.
Wow.
And it was because, again, we're Chicagoans, lifetime. My dad had been in the business for a while. He had gotten to know the Hallis family, and they were great to me when my dad passed away, partially because I think they knew I couldn't handle what I was about to do. And so Hallis agreed to this interview, and I sat in his office with him with my older brother for 3 hours that day.
Wow. And
we just talked football. And it was shortly after that he passed away. But the family knew about that, and so I immediately had a relationship with the McCaskey family, and was accepted by them as a media person they could trust. And my media business kind of grew up with their football business after they lost the legend, George Hallis.
Well, how would you describe him? For me growing up, it was all you would ever hear about was how cheap the Bears were, and that they would throw nickels around like sewer covers or whatever they would say. It was just and you would talk to former Bears, and it's like sort of like a love-hate relationship. They respect him a ton for bringing the game, and then also Edward Bradovich got fined $500 for throwing his helmet into the crowd, and after they won the championship in 1963, and he was probably making $10,000 at the time, so it was a lot of money. So, but it was weird that they loved him, and they also wished that he had paid more. But and then the legend of him, I don't know how would you describe him?
Well, my perspective is going to be a little different from most. And
yeah.
At the time, I want to say he was 83 when he passed away.
Okay.
I was 25.
Yeah.
Just like a grandfather to me. That's the way he treated me, the same way my grandparents did, because I was just a kid starting in the business. And he was great with me. The few one-on-ones that we had, we didn't have that many because he didn't die that long after I took over. But I always thought the money was so different in those days, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, in those days, $20,000 was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Can you imagine paying an NFL player $20,000? and so, money was different for all of us in those days, and the numbers were just very different. And, the reason that he was regarded as cheap is because he was George Hallis and he had the Bears. He didn't have to pay what other teams had to pay to get some of the guys that he wanted. Now, they were cheap. There's no question about that.
Right.
And I don't know if that ever changed or when it changed. It was after he passed away. But that was not the problem with the football team. The problem with the there was no problem with the football team because at the time that I took over, the 85 Bears had just begun. They were, 81, 82. That team was being built. So at that time, they were building one of the best teams in the history of the game. And so the negativity towards the old man or towards the family because he passed away didn't really start until after the 85 Bears were done in the early 90s. That's when a lot of what is current negativity amongst the media and the fans really started.
Yeah, I want to get into today's, obviously, Bears and some more here, but also I do want to hear, when we come back in 2 minutes, your thoughts on Mike Ditka, because I know you have to have a ton. So that's next in 2 minutes with the great Hub Arkush.
Hey, guess what, Chicago? This week, the Windy City Smokeout is back, and I couldn't be more excited. I will be there all 4 days. Thank you very much. 9 times out of 10, every single person in this city will tell you the Windy City Smokeout is the best weekend of the summer, no question about it. And make sure tickets are still available for Thursday and Friday. Old Dominion's going to be playing on Friday. Bailey Zimmerman on Thursday. Barbecue is the best you will ever have in the world. They come from all over the country to show you what they're all about. Make sure it is cannot miss. And if you find me, I'll probably buy you a drink. So if you haven't grabbed your tickets yet, once again, tickets are still available on Thursday and Friday. So don't miss out on the best weekend of the summer. Grab your Thursday and Friday tickets now at WindyCitySmokeout.com. And after you go to Windy City Smokeout, you're going to want some good air conditioning, right, Katie? I mean, of course. And Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric will have you covered. They've been serving Chicagoland for over 50 years. 2024 was officially Chicago's hottest year on record, and it hasn't gotten any cooler here in 2025. When it's hot and humid, you want to know your home will be cool and comfortable. Four Seasons will do just that, and their expert technicians ensure you will always receive a reliable service, and Four Seasons doesn't charge more for service during nights, weekends, and holidays. They were working on the 4th of July. Thank you very much. Schedule your Four Seasons AC tune-up today and save $50 and enjoy a 1-year no-breakdown guarantee. So your trusted local experts are Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. Visit FourSeasonsHeatingCooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. That's FourSeasonsHeatingCooling.com.
And I'll explain at the end of the show why Braggs is doing all the ads today. But this is it's an amazing moment, really, in CHGO Bears history.
That one I nailed 2 minutes on the dot. Katie can confirm, but we're doing it.
You're impressing me today in so many ways. It's frightening. All right, get in here with Hub as I feel like I'm hogging.
I'm just taking it in too.
Okay.
You know?
Well, so
because you're like. Still, like, you're ascending to the royalty status. Like, you've been in this a long time, too. So, like, hearing you guys trade stories, this is something I've grown up with, is listening to these two fine gentlemen cover Chicago sports.
And I did get to do TV with Hub a ton at old NBC Sports Chicago on Cap Show and whatnot. But so that's when I first got to meet him. And he went to he would kick my older brother's butt on the flag football field back in the day. Who mentioned that. But anyway, let's get to Ditka. And so he shows up here in 1982, $100,000 cheapest contract in the NFL. But he didn't care about that. I'm going to lead the Bears to victory. And then so you're running alongside him. Like how would you describe Mike back in that day? What type of relationships do you have with him?
Well, in the beginning, I knew him as a player, and covering him that way. And so getting used to him as a coach was pretty much what anybody who knew him as a player expected, but still very different. And so it took a while to know how to interact with him correctly and how to get what you needed, as media from him. But he was always great with me, never had a problem with him. And he was the same with the media as he was with the players. I mean, if he got mad at you, he let you know it and he let you have it. And he didn't care what you wrote or said about him or anything else. But he was... not a Hall of Fame player, I wouldn't say. I think he's an NFL Hall of Famer, should be, because of the combination of his career things. But he was one of the best tight ends in the league, when he got the job as the head coach. And I think our reaction in those early days was this is the only head coaching job he ever could have gotten. The old man was the only one who was going to hire him as his head coach. Right. And he knew something that's why George Halas invented the NFL. I mean, he knew more about the game than anybody else, and he knew what there was in Ditka, and he turned out to be right.
Do you think the biggest also two questions here. One, if Jim McMahon stays healthy, how many Super Bowls do you think that team wins? And the other part of it would be, do you think anything changes if they don't let Wilbur Marshall walk out the door because they didn't want to pay him more money than Mike Singletary was getting at the time? And that was this whole story that Singletary had to be the highest paid linebacker, which was an absurd thing, but that's what they did.
Yeah, I don't think those two players would be the biggest difference. It's really hard to win back-to-back Super Bowls, let alone a number of Super Bowls during a certain era. And the reality is that I still believe that was the best defense of all time. It was the best defense in the 50 years that I've been covering the game. It wasn't the best offense. It wasn't a complete team. And that 85 team, anybody who goes back and watches it now knows they won because of the defense, not because of the team. Although I'm not, knocking the offense. There were some great players on that offense. There was the greatest running back in the history of the game on that offense. But it was basically the defense and Walter,
Right.
And I think that more than anything, the fact that they didn't improve the offense more is the reason that team didn't win another Super Bowl besides that first one.
So that's interesting. You don't think just a McMahon being healthy on his own would have been enough?
It might have been. They might have won another one.
Right.
But
They had drafted Dan Marino.
yeah,
Well, that's
Jim was a very good quarterback, but
Right.
he wasn't at the same level as these top Super Bowl quarterbacks that we think about now. He won one, and that makes him one. But he was at least a notch below, maybe 2 notches below these great Super Bowl quarterbacks who get there and win multiple times. I mean, thinking about Tom Brady and then thinking about Jim McMahon, I really just stop right there and don't think about it anymore.
Right.
It's just not the same guy.
right. There was a McMahon love affair that I think a lot of Bears fans had. I had that because of his attitude and his brashness and everything that he brought to the table, and it's also you look around at Bears quarterbacks, they haven't had anybody that had that won like that had, let me come off the bench in Minnesota and throw 3 touchdown passes and win a football game. You just didn't see that.
You got to have that mentality, right, in this city, no matter what team you play for.
Really with Jim, the thing is he was the perfect fit for Mike Ditka. And people, who followed the team at the time would never understand that or accept that. But they were the same guy as players, and McMahon was the same guy off the field after his playing career as Ditka was. And Mike knew how to handle him, and he knew when to handle him and when not to handle him. And you had to know that with Jim McMahon, because when McMahon was off kilter, he stayed off kilter for a while, before you got him back. And so, again, you compare the old man to Ditka. I compare Ditka to McMahon. They were the perfect fit together, even though they seem to be adversaries so often.
So if you move it forward, or just in a whole general Bears quarterback discussion, we can bring it all the way to Caleb, which hopefully that'll obviously turn out to be a phenomenal thing. But if let's roll it back to Justin, and then to Mitch, and then Rex, and whoever else. There's the $1 million question for you. Why do you think the Bears have never been able to figure out the quarterback position? Is it just that they haven't drafted like in Kansas City, it never worked out until they got Patrick Mahomes. A lot of Bears says if Mahomes was here, he'd suck because he's with the Bears. And I'm like, no, I don't really see it that way. But I also it's not a 100%. I know that to be the answer.
Well, I wish I had a good answer for you, but I don't think it's a team issue. They made a lot of mistakes in the guys that they picked, and they had a couple guys who could have been better, but they didn't have the right coaches to develop them. The one problem that I think that quarterbacks have always had with the Bears is that the Bears have always been known as a run-first team. They've had the greatest running backs in the history of the game. They've never had the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game. You go back to the old days, there's a few quarterbacks who you remember, but even they're, these aren't Hall of Fame guys, and it's just the way that the history of the team has gone. But I've always thought that it was really an offensive problem because they didn't either draft or hire the right people, players and coaches. And because how many other great defenses have they had? Even in your area, they've had 3 or 4 great defenses. Mm-hmm. They haven't had a great offense in 25 or 30 years. It's just the way that this organization has always been.
Well, and it's all about talent, right? Because the one year that the offense looked like nothing I've ever seen, and it started at training camp, was when they had Jay Cutler, Matt Forte, Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey, Martellus Bennett. And I can remember going to camp. It was the first year Brandon Marshall was a wide receiver for the Bears. And he caught one. I'm standing at the top of bleachers. He catches one hand on the sideline. And we all looked at each other. Never seen that before. And so it's like, yeah, you get talented players and things will suddenly look different. Because you can say, oh, well, I've heard fans say, well, it's hard to have great offense when you play in the cold. Well, I hadn't stopped Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre in Lambeau Field for the last 40 years. So ultimately, it just comes down to picking the right guy.
Yeah, and it's picking the right head coach and picking the right quarterback. And in both areas, I'm not saying that they made a mistake or that they did badly, but they didn't get the guy. They didn't get the right guy. And that's, that's what we've been living. That's why people are so excited about Ben Johnson right now. That's why Chicago's going nuts right now. Ben Johnson, the best offensive coach available as a head coach, and yet we don't know what he's going to do. We'll see where we're at in a year or two, but that's why everybody's going crazy right now, is they think they finally got the offensive coach who can get the Bears where they need to go.
Well, and again, and then you look at that year when the Bears took off, well, Mark Trestman, for all his faults as a head coach and a leader of men, and Briggs is here every week with us, works with us, and he told me that they weren't big fans of the way he led. Well, he knew offense, and that's why the offense played well. So I guess then the question is, okay, Ben knows offense. He's proven that over the last 3 years. 70 touchdowns with the Lions. The Detroit Lions are a powerhouse in the NFL. But then the question is, can he be a leader of men? So I guess my question to you is, from what you've seen, and you're talking all the way back to Ditka, who certainly led a group of, ragtag, motley crew of a locker room. Can Ben Johnson lead this new generation of men in this locker room?
Well, from what I've seen so far in the last few months, and we've seen the players and Johnson together, during summer camp and whatever, they're reacting to him very well. And he is not I'm going to be your best friend head coach.
He's not.
No, he has already made it clear to them this is going to be tough and it's going to be hard. And he's run the practice. Again, these practices so far haven't meant much. They haven't had pads on, but I can see the way he's handling his players and the way they're reacting to him, that there seems to be a good fit. You mentioned one coach. Matt Nagy's another good example. Not a great head coach, but a good offensive coach. And so he made them a contender, because he knew offense. He just wasn't a great head coach, and so now with Johnson, he's the next guy in that group. Can he not only be a great offensive coach, but a great head coach? And that's what I'm excited to find out in the next couple of years.
What are your thoughts on Caleb with what you've seen so far?
I thought he got treated very unfairly on his rookie year. He didn't have a bad rookie year. You look at his numbers, the record was bad, but that's because the team was bad. That's because the coaching was bad. But you look at his performance, he didn't play badly. He didn't play like Jaden Daniels did, he didn't take over the league, but he couldn't with what he had around him. And I'm excited with what I saw from his rookie year, now that they've added so much talent around him and they've added, I think, a much better coaching staff. I'm pretty excited about what I think you're going to see from him this year.
Yeah.
Do you believe in the defense this year?
That's an interesting question because it's been about the defense the last couple of years. Flus was a very good defense. He's a good defensive coordinator. He's a very good defensive coach. And yet I look at the changes during the offseason. The defensive line needed to get better, and it's gotten very different. How much better is it? We will see. And then I look at letting Sanborn get away, and I look at the linebackers. I think they're in pretty good shape with the linebackers, but I worry about they may have the best secondary in the league. The secondary is really good right now, talent-wise. We'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. But I'm worried about both the defensive line and the linebackers as we go to training camp.
Yeah,
that's what we were talking about before you came in. It was like, because Jake, is an eternal meatball Bears fan just like me, and it's like, and everything you're saying, I agree with. Like, you're looking at this team on paper, and you're like, okay, this could be a winning formula, especially with the coaching staff. And so it's like trying to find the blind spots, that so many times we as a fan base set ourselves up for failure, where we hype it up and then it all kind of comes crumbling down, and maybe it's kind of become a protective instinct. So I guess talk about the defense having the question marks. Are there any other blind spots that you can envision that maybe we're not seeing right now with everything kind of looking promising?
Well, I will tell you kind of a reverse blind spot. There's a chance that both the defensive line and the linebackers can be very good. There is talent on both those units. I worry a little bit about the age of the talent on the defensive line, but they're not old. They're 29, 31. And some defensive linemen have their best years in their 30s. So it could be a very good defense. And if it is, then the defense is going to be impressive, because those two linebackers, TJ is, I thought he should have gone to the Pro Bowl last year. And maybe he'll go this year. And I look at Evans, he hasn't played badly. He just hasn't been the $49 million guy that they thought when they gave him the 3-year contract. But he's been good enough. And now you look at this kid Hyperbole, who everybody's talking about. And I think in Allen's defense, he's going to be a good fit. I do think he's going to be the starter as a rookie. And that could be a pretty good group, So as long as the defensive line isn't too old and those three linebackers mesh together, the defense could be very good again this year too.
We can do a little Michigan talk here coming back because I believe that the Bears did draft a tight end from Michigan who could play a big part in this thing this year. Did you just look at my hair and wonder why I look so good?
No, Kevin's out there tanning some more.
Oh,
So
Kevin from the store,
we
softball,
call him
our
Naked
softball
Guy.
sponsor.
He goes out
Naked
there.
Man. He's on the men. We're getting him going, and we're gonna get him out on the field before the season's over. Hey, one quick more 2-minute timeout, and then we'll wrap it up with Hub in ways that you won't even believe how good the next segment's gonna be. But first.
We're doing it up with True Fan Travel once again. That's right. Last year we were in London and Arizona, and True Fan Travel's taking care of us and taking care of you this year when we head to Viva Las Vegas as the Chicago Bears take on the Raiders on September 28th. We'll be getting in that Friday. A 3-night stay at a premium Vegas resort is included. Tickets to the game are also included. That's important because it's not easy to get tickets to this game. VIP parties. Of course, we're going to be doing tailgates before the game, live shows, live post-game shows. It's going to be an unforgettable experience with the CHGO crew and fellow fans and much more special people coming. So don't gamble on missing the ultimate fan experience. Book your spot now at truefantravel.com and search CHGO Bears. And then, of course, when you're on your trip, make sure you're bringing Mando. I know Mark Carman better be bringing his Mando because we want him smelling good. They have a 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar, shampoo, face wash, body wash, and deodorant all in one bar. It simplifies your whole hygiene routine and saves space in your bag so you can bring more stuff as you come to Vegas with us. And, one thing that has made me more confident in Mando whole body deodorant, well, of course, that's the fact that they take care of me. It's the pits, the thigh folds, the belly buttons, the butt cracks. That's right. All of the necessary nuances of your body, Mando makes sure they take care of you. So Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice. And then, of course, a special offer for listeners. New customers get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code. Use the code CHGO at shopmando.com. At shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide and free shipping. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando.
It pains me when Mando goes to you, but you did a great job with it, head to toe. Mando.
Not as good as you do it. That's for sure.
Thank you. I'll accept that compliment. Hey, I'm seeing Eric Beauchamp's putting it in the chat, and I'm seeing it on my phone. People are texting me, Gary Ross. Why? There's a concern about the Bears' offensive line depth. They've got 17 guys back there. Greg campaigned for everybody to come back, Bill Murray and all of them. Are you worried about the depth on the O-line?
I'm not, because you look at the veterans they added in free agency. You got a couple Pro Bowlers. That dramatically improves the interior of the line. I think they're in good shape at right tackle for the next 7-8 years. And he will go to a Pro Bowl or two. He's played at very near that level. And I look on the other side, and Braxton Jones. I mean, you're talking about a guy who was, if you look at there's so many different ways that the media, checks this stuff now and leverages it and addresses it. But he was one of the top 8 or 9 left tackles in the league by most of these ways that they address that until he got hurt. And I think he may be the starter again this year, and he could continue to get better. So if you're good at tackle with the 2 guys you've already got, you're in good shape, plus what you've added on the interior. And then you look at these kids they've drafted in the 2nd and 3rd rounds the last couple of years. They're all talent. So I think there's plenty to work with there to have the depth that they need. We just haven't seen any of these guys play together yet,
right,
and that's why we're not sure about it.
Yeah, I'm excited for Ozzie Trapillo, probably more than any normal human being would be excited for a second round. But we have been looking for this offensive line solution. So it is funny when I see Bears fans in the chat saying they're worried about the offensive line depth. let's not get greedy here. We got a pretty good front five for once. Now they got to learn to come together here. But, having Ozzy Trapillo as, a rookie backup left tackle.
Well, but I think Hub hit on the key there. Like, if you tell me that Braxton's healthy, I think most Bears fans are going to feel very comfortable with the line. Now, if he's not healthy, well, I mean, maybe Ozzy Trapillo can do it. Maybe he can't. Maybe Karan Amagaji can do it. Maybe he can't. And if they can't, well, that's a very important position that you're trying to figure out on the fly. Yeah. So, I don't know what they would do if Braxton's not healthy.
Yeah, you're talking about second and third round draft choices. And so on the offensive line, that's still pretty good talent, whereas in other positions you might say, well, that may not be good enough. You don't know with the offensive line. You forget that your left tackle right now is a fifth-round pick and it was a day one starter,
Right.
So it can go either way. But I'm fairly high on Ryan Poles right now, and that's where I start all of this. I like the job that he's done the first few years. Nobody gets it right on day one. He realized the mistakes he made those first 2 years and did a big turnaround this offseason. And I love the way he did it. He went with veterans on the interior of the offensive line to help run things for your quarterback, and then he went with good young talent on the outside to get them to become the best athletes and the best players. Then you look at the second-round pick and getting your third wide receiver there when everybody thought that they were loaded at wide receiver. What I've heard from people I talked to around the league is that this guy should have been a first-round pick and that they've got 3 really outstanding wide receivers. You look at the tight ends. I know you wanted to mention Colson. Yeah. I had him as the number 1 tight end, not the number 2 tight end in this. Now, I'm a Michigan guy, but that's not why. It's because I watched all of his games. Mm-hmm. As a receiver, he was clearly better than the other guy. And you look at what they did in Detroit and what he's going to want to do here with his offense. He's going to want to use Cole Kmet too. He's going to use both tight ends, and it's going to be impossible for defenses to plan to cover both of them when you're so good at wide receiver. So the way that Poles has set up this offense for this year, I think they've got a chance to be really good if Caleb Williams is the franchise quarterback that we all thought he would be, or at least looked like he could be when he was the number 1 pick in the draft.
Yeah, I wasn't as surprised with the way the draft fell in the first round that Colson Loveland was the pick. I was with you that I felt higher on him than Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State, because of his separation ability and the way you see it with a Ben Johnson type offense. But then when they drafted Luther Burden in the second round, I was shocked. I could not believe, after everything we've talked about with the meat and potatoes, getting better in the trenches, and then their first 2 picks are, for Ben Johnson to give him a couple Ferraris in there. I don't know about you, but I think Luther Burden is such a wild card. I'm excited to see him. I just couldn't believe the Bears went with that in the second round.
Well, I will going back to that first round for just a second. I will tell you that Warren was probably the more complete player than Loveland. But Loveland definitely the better receiver. And when you look at what Johnson did in Detroit, where he already had, a Cole Kmet type tight end, a really good one, but he drafted Laporta as high as he did because for the same reason he drafted Loveland. He didn't draft him, Poles did. People keep saying, Ben Johnson did this, he did that, and they keep crediting him with everything that's been done on the roster. Ryan Poles has made the final decision on all. Now he's working closely with Johnson, and I'm sure Johnson has tremendous input into this, but putting those 2 tight ends together is why they wanted Loveland where they did, and then went and got Burden in the second round. And so it was Poles getting exactly what he thought his new head coach wanted and needed to build the offense he could. And that's, again, why I think there's so much excitement around that group right now.
Were you surprised when they drafted Loveland?
No.
You weren't?
Well, partially because of all the sources I have at Michigan. Okay. I knew he'd been visiting, and I have sources in Ann Arbor. I knew they really liked him, and I knew Johnson really liked him. I still was a little surprised because of a couple of the other players that were on the board. I wanted the running back who went 2 picks sooner, to the Raiders. Yeah. And I thought if they get him, you can fix the rest another time. Once he was off the board, I kind of half expected that it could be Loveland, although I wasn't sure that they weren't going to go one more time at that offensive line because there was so much talent still there.
So you wanted Genty. Were you hot on Travion Henderson? Did you like him too?
Yeah, but not that high. Okay. And that Genty is the only guy that I would have taken where the Bears, took at number 10. And if he hadn't gone to the Raiders, I think he would have been there at number 10. Yeah. But I think most of us saw him going to the Raiders where he did.
Yeah, because they were rumored that they were trying to trade up to get or thinking about trading up to get Travion in the second round, and they obviously didn't do that. Drafted Luther and whatnot. So I know you spent a lot of time on the scouting side, so that's interesting. let me flip it back to sort of where we started here. If you could name like the one biggest mistake that this organization has made, be it, it could just be letting one general man like Jim Finks letting him go out the door, or a head coach, or I don't know, like one moment in Bears time where like you knew that is not a good decision. This is going to have long lasting effects. Does anything come to mind?
There really isn't one that jumps out at me. It's Jim Finks was ready to move on. It wasn't, I'm not sure they could have kept him if they wanted to. He was at that point. The old man was still alive, and there was nowhere else to go in the organization, and so the fact that he went to the Cubs was a bit of a surprise. But no, that didn't shock me really. I can't think of any one that really jumps out at me. It's a lot of the quarterback picks have been questionable when they made them. But they didn't take any of those quarterbacks who weren't within a few spots of where they took them with every other team in the league too. So it's not like they made a mistake that nobody else would have made. I think it's just that there hasn't been more offensive talent to mesh with the defensive talent in the Bears organization over the last 35 years.
Right. Yeah, I think for me in the recent memory, having at one point I think they needed to cut bait with Jay Cutler. You got rid of the GM, you got rid of the head coach, but then you kept Cutler. And this is something when the headline of the show is breaking the cycle. They could never just wipe the slate clean and let everybody was rolling over into somebody else. And I thought that was their perfect because there's rarely a perfect opportunity to do that, and they had one there, and instead they decided to keep Jay but get rid of the GM and head coach. That didn't make sense to me. And that, I think, also led to missing out on an opportunity to draft a guy like Russell Wilson, who I thought they might have been interested in had they not had a guy like Jay. And then a few years ago, it was the same thing. Not getting rid of Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, I felt like that was a year too late. Now, would that have changed the trajectory and everything would be fixed? No, but I just felt like those were two moments where they had an opportunity to kind of break this cycle, stop rolling over one problem into the next, whether it's quarterback into the next head coach or head coach into the next GM and so on and so forth. So hopefully, obviously now a quarterback getting rolled over with Caleb Williams into Ben Johnson, that it does work out. So we'll see. That's kind of where I'm at with the two for me that bugged me.
The one thing I would throw in there, though, guys, is that Jay Cutler was the new GM and the new head coach's decision. They wanted 1 year out of him. It wasn't. The McCaskies don't make football decisions. That's one of the things they don't get credit for this for being smart about something, but they don't butt into. They make the money decisions on what they pay these football players, or at least they approve or don't disapprove. But they don't tell their GM and their coach, get this player, get that player. And so they just wanted 1 more year. They wanted to see what they could do with Cutler for a year, and then they found out quickly not much more than anybody else.
Yeah, he was about done.
Do you look at it? And as we get to the top of the hour, thank everybody who's watching us on the TV. As we're about to transition into our overtime for a second here. Become a diehard, $36, get a free T-shirt. You could read my amazing piece on Tyson Bagent, which I didn't put you into the when Bagent's going to win us the Super Bowl, and or win some team the Super Bowl. But there's a phenomenal content there, and we appreciate everybody who supported us. Let's say this. Do you think that the structure that they have right now with Kevin at the top, followed by Ryan, Ben as the head coach, do you think the Bears are actually in the best position organizationally, the way things are set up right now, than they've ever been? Is that too early to tell?
Well, I'm going to be honest, which is going to get me into trouble with some people, but I'm not a huge Kevin Warren fan, and I can tell you that the Big Ten wasn't a huge fan of his. The Vikings, he got them a stadium built, and they let him get away. He's not bad. He's just not the guy that I want running one of the top organizations in the NFL. Now, if he gets a stadium built, that will be what he was hired for, and that's why the McCaskies picked him. So they're okay there. But as long as he stays out of the football side and he leaves Poles and Johnson side to do what they have to do now the next couple of years, then I think they'll be fine. But I don't know that they're going to win their next Super Bowl with Kevin Warren.
Do you worry that he wants too much credit? Like to me, it's just been a little bit odd. Like in the draft room, he's sitting right there. He's right next to Ben. I'm like, That seems a little bit off to me. I don't know if it's a big deal or not. Maybe it's not.
Unlike unlike most of these guys, I don't know him well personally. I look forward to getting to know him. I got real sick just before he got hired, and then didn't really start getting back into things full speed until this last season. And so I'm anxious to get to know him a little better. And that's why I'm saying I may not be being fair with him. I don't know.
Yeah.
But as long as he stays out of the football and focuses on the stadium stuff, then they may have the right guys in all three spots. I don't know.
And that's kind of like, for me, coming back to where we started with, you kind of talking about how you came up in the industry. And so I'm curious from where you're saying I want to get to know him, and talking about the, times you got to interact with Mike Ditka and George Halas. I am curious about your perspective on like the access and the changes it has been from when you started to where it is now, and how that dictates the way the coverage is for yourself. And I'm just curious of how much that's changed and how much it's hurt or helped, the industry and the way media can cover the teams fairly.
Well, the one thing that's true about everything in life, guys, is change. And the league has changed so much, and the game has changed so much over all these years. As far as the media's access and the way that they're handled, the guys, the guys who are really good at it figure out a way to do the job right. The guys who are more interested in promoting themselves than doing their job don't do the job right. And that's always been the case. I think there's a little more of that now. There's too much available too easily on social media and on the internet that is bad information that gets out there. And so I think fans are not getting as good information as they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. But that's just because it's being run differently. It's not because of the way the teams handle it or the way the Bears handle it.
It's interesting because that's honestly was going to be my second question. Just as somebody who is kind of this new media, right? I didn't come up the traditional way. Was a bricklayer for 20 years and stumbled into this job, which I'm very grateful for.
You didn't stumble into it. You became a lunatic on social media, and you created an opportunity for yourself. And you were very actually methodical about it. But keep going.
Yeah, I'm not going to say there wasn't hard work involved, but I do. It's hard for me because I'm super competitive. I want to enjoy this. I want to win in a lot of ways. It is a lot about promoting yourself just as much as you're promoting the brand and covering the team and telling the stories. So it's like, for me, it's like a huge juggling act. Mm-hmm. And then also just trying to gain the respect of guys like Hogue and Carman, you and Brad Biggs. I
don't worry about that.
And other guys, everybody that's covered the team. You want the respect of those guys in the room, but at the same time, like, you're not going to beg for it. You got to do what you got to do. So I guess I'm looking for the advice you'd give to me and the younger generation that's coming in from a different way of how we should go about this and how we should carry the torch to cover these teams in the city the right way, but in a new environment.
Yeah, and please don't take this wrong. I have nothing wrong with media who've grown up on the internet and on social media, as long as they do the job right. And you do, and a lot of guys do. Check your sources. Know people in the league. Get to know a few GMs, a few coaches, a number of players. And as long as you're getting information from them as well as from other media on the internet, then you're probably doing a pretty good job. And that's why I think fans they're just getting too much now. And I think it's too hard for fans to know what they can trust and what they can't. And I don't know if that's going to get fixed or how to fix it. I think that's a bit of a problem with the media right now. It will get fixed because it always gets fixed. I'm not smart enough to do it. So
yeah.
It's that algorithm, right? Like, we're all now prisoners to the algorithm, because if you don't push what is going to drive the clicks, then the sponsors aren't happy because you're not getting enough clicks, you're not getting enough revenue. It's all, and that's what's changed. It's not just in sports media, that's in political media and everything else. To be able to run a 24-hour news channel of politics or sports or anything, you got to fill up the time. And so, like you said, it's become so watered down because there's just so much content being thrown at it. Now you add in YouTube and all these different people. It's just kind of a vicious cycle.
We're getting a trip into the mind of Greg Braggs in the last couple of minutes here. And listen to me. You're doing great. You'll continue to do great. Keep on, listen to Hub, build your relationships, and then next thing you know, a guy like Biggs might respect you. Probably not, but you have a chance.
And feel young, because that's always good to feel young. But I personally think you're doing a very good job. I always listen to your stuff on my phone when I can, and really enjoyed being with you guys today.
No,
Hub, you're the best.
You.
And you fired up for this year? You ready to? Or it's like, oh my God, it's coming too quick.
No, I'm ready. I've never really enjoyed the summer because I can't wait for the season to start, And I think there's a good chance that the Bears win the division this year. There's also a chance they finish last again. There's still so much we don't know. But they're definitely in competition with those other three teams right now, and they weren't last year. And that's something for fans to be excited about.
Yeah, that sort of speaks to it.
It's
a wide range, man.
They're either going to win 10 or they're going to win 5. They do this every year. I did see Mark in the chat giving you a shout out for your socks. Normally, Carm is the one bringing the unique socks to the table.
I matched the orange with the orange shirt.
Hub,
take that.
But now Hub is challenging you with the sock game.
The Hub looks good. I mean, that's
black and white socks are just old news, guys.
we got the full flavor, and we got your legs, which we hate, but you do it anyway. All right, hey, hit the like button for Hub on the way out here, making time for us driving down and the whole thing.
I think we did have one super chat in here.
Do we have a super chat?
Yeah.
From $5 from Crystal. Crystal's the greatest. This super is for Jake, the man with the plan. Love when you're on. Bear down, guys. Thanks for getting us through the off season. It is, of course, our pleasure. No softball tonight. They're extending the July 4th holiday, so Crystal won't be manning the ship behind home plate like she's done so well as our leader. But we're back next week. Shout out to Kevin in the store. And shout out to you for doing all the ads today. There, Gregory.
Got
some stuff going on behind the scenes. So
Katie as well.
Katie stepping in for Steven today.
This morning.
I mean, it was such a peaceful ride today without Steven. Like, I didn't get yelled at. Kidding. We miss you, Steven. But Katie, great job today, as you do everywhere around here. We're back tomorrow at noon. Thanks a ton to Hub Arkush for coming in. Marco Escobita, $2 on the way out. Or Caleb had a great rookie year for what he had. Hey, Marco, no one's arguing with you. Marcus, got you. Well, actually, I'll argue with that. Great's a little bit strong, but good. He was at least good. How's that, Marcus?
It's gonna be great this year.
Great this year. Hey, we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.
We all silly like the mayor.